everyone. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
There we are. Hi,
There we
everyone. I'm Crystal with the Dog Psychology and Training Center. This is my husband,
Eric. Wrong hand, and I'm off camera.
And we would like to welcome our newest trainer, Christina, to our Facebook Live today to introduce her to our amazing followers out there. So do you want to start with just kind of a little bit about you?
Sure. So, as you said, my name is Christina. This is my third week training here, but I have had dogs my whole life. And even though I've had them my whole life, I'm learning that there's still a lot that I don't know about them. So that's interesting. Now I have a little golden retriever lab mix named Bacon. I named her that because when she was a baby, she was always shaken, and she still does it now. She's so cute.
Very cool. Thank you.
Cool.
All right. So today's topic we wanted to talk about was I still kept it as Thanksgiving, guys.
Yeah, you did it. Well,
I
check
did
that
it.
out. Check
So
that out.
as I think for today,
print.
in my head, I kept saying Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving. And right before we went live, I'm like, face plant. It's Christmas, guys. We just had Thanksgiving. So to mitigate any confusion there might be, this applies to next year's Thanksgiving, but also to the upcoming Christmas.
Yes.
So
And any other time you're having a feast, and primarily with company at the house.
So get-togethers that involve food, that's what Thanksgiving means to me. So there's not much recovering that.
I mean, we have the wreath up.
Yeah, there is a Christmas
we're not
wreath.
Completely off.
Yeah, I just got to get my holidays straight in my head. My kids kept calling Thanksgiving Valentine's Day, so that was real fun. When are we having Valentine's Day? February?
Still got a ways for that.
Yeah. So anyway, our topic for today is going to be about Christmas. And so what foods your dog can eat, what foods they should avoid, or you should avoid giving them. And then the benefits of having your dog learn the place command for lots of parts of Christmas Day. So place can be something that's for when company comes, or while you're eating, or when your dog is just so excitable they can't contain themselves. Placing is a great option for them. That being said, should we start the place on Christmas Day? Should we start teaching the place on
that
Christmas
would be.
Day?
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Right?
What do you think?
You'd want
what
to
do you think,
shoot
Christina?
us.
Should they start teaching place on Christmas Day?
I think if you start on Christmas Day, you might not have as much success as you want to.
Yes.
So probably practice a little bit before then.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so you don't hate us. So place is a command, and just like any command, it involves a little bit of work to teach the dog and communicate with them what this word means, the definition of it, the rules and boundaries of it, so that there is clear communication and understanding and execution of that command. So we'll start by explaining a little bit about what place is. Would you want to say what you think place is, or your definition of place?
Sure. So place means that you point to a specified area or object that your dog can comfortably fit on.
Yes.
Whether they're sitting, laying, standing, doesn't matter. They can do whatever they want on that thing, as long as all 4 feet are on it all the time until you say break, and then they can go.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so our term that we use is place. Some people will say, well, I tell my dog to go lay down, or I say bed. For us, that's a way more casual command, meaning if I say go lay down or go to your bed, I really don't care if they stay on it or that they go to it. I just want them to go away from me or whoever they're bothering. Place is a command, and that it's not optional. Like Christina said, it has to be on a designated object or like an area, like a fireplace mantle. So you can't like point to a room and say place in that room, but it has to be an object that your dog can be on top of that has a distinguishable difference from the ground. So you can't have like one square tile and say place on this tile, but the whole floor is tile. Way too confusing. You can say place on, like I said, a fireplace mantle, a doormat, a kitchen rug by the sink or oven, place cots, dog beds, a piece of furniture like a chair, or some other place objects that people might have access to for Christmas or Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, so inside the home, even if you've got like a little ottoman.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of of options.
Ornament.
Anything your dog can comfortably fit on. Obviously, the possibilities get a lot larger with smaller dogs.
Yeah.
When we had Ellie Lou, the little French bulldog, in for training, I was having her place on children's books and a lot of our kids' little toys that she could fit on. Not so practical for my Neapolitan Mastiff. So we have a lot less options for Morgan to place on, but placing is a really cool thing. So let's see, I have some tips over here that I wanted to follow. If you do have a aggressive, fearful, or reactive dog, I would highly encourage you to not have them out with your company for Thanksgiving Day. Even if your company knows your dog is fearful, reactive, and or aggressive, that's a stressful day for everyone.
Right.
It's a good kind of stress, but it's still stressful, right? It's a holiday, you're prepping, you're being prepared, you're overwhelmed.
The energy is up.
Yeah,
here.
you're balancing so many plates on your head right now that it's just, that all ebbs off onto your dog and it exacerbates their already nervous, fearful, or reactive energy. So for those dogs, I would highly encourage you to start creating them now. And so that they are not so surprised or shocked come Christmas Day when they're crated the majority of the day, because if you have company over at your house the majority of the day, you should crate your dog the majority of the day. And some people would say, well, that's mean, or I feel bad. It's more stressful and harmful to your dog's emotional health to have them exposed and to possibly make a horrendous choice, growling, snapping, or biting at someone because they were put in an impossible situation to cope with. So having your dog crated in a basement or a room far away from the party where nobody goes is the more humane and calming and soothing environment for your dog for that hectic day.
Yeah.
If you have a dog that is friendly, that is a social butterfly and would love to be the center of the party, then this is where placing is going to be a great opportunity for you. So your social butterfly can be present, but not stealing food off people's plates or out of their hands, and not necessarily in the middle of the party, making you even more stressed out because your dog is demanding everybody's attention and just being not a bad dog, but just maybe a pushy dog that's demanding attention. So the other
like somebody I know downstairs.
Yeah, we definitely have a social butterfly in right now who is demanding all of our attention last night. And he's beautiful, so he gets it. But so if you are going to be crating your dog, things to keep in mind. Crating will only be beneficial if you leash your dog to take them outside to go potty. If you think, well, he's been in the crate for 3 hours, I'm going to go take him outside to go potty. Great idea. But don't do it off leash because he could make a wrong turn, or a person could be in the wrong part of the house and surprise you or your dog. And that can have an altercation, whether that's a dog that's fearful and he might tinkle on the ground or just really become afraid, or a dog that's reactive and aggressive who might actually lunge or try to bite that person. So, having your dog on a leash to go outside for those potty breaks, even though they normally do it outside off leash, I would keep them on leash, finish inside, feed them in their crate or feed them in that room with you in there so you can remove the food when they're not eating and put them back safely in their crate, and obviously offer water throughout the day as well. So for the dogs that place would be an ideal candidate for, place is not a crate, cage, or kennel command. There is a difference with this. Crate, kennel, or cage means go into your crate and we are going to close the door and leave you in it. Place means stay on this object until we give you permission to leave. So it's kind of like an invisible crate command, but they are not to be used interchangeably. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Okay. So place does mean go to this object and, like Christina said, stay there until we give you the break command. Break to us means you're free. You can make whatever choices you want. So they have to stay on that place command until they are given that release word. You can use whatever release word you want. It could be free dog. It could be yes. It could be okay. I had one family I worked with who wanted it to be at ease. And so when their dogs were done with their commands, he would say at ease, and the dog was free to do whatever he wanted. It was really silly and cute, but it worked. So it doesn't matter what words you're using. It's just the consistency that goes with it. Okay, so now we're going to get into anything to add about place, what it is and what it isn't.
Your dogs can also, like if you've got a toy that obviously if there's no resource guarding, if you've got your social butterfly out and he's holding in place, if you want to give him a bone or a Kong or something to kind of occupy him and use up some of his energy, give him an outlet, and that's
Yep.
totally appropriate to do on a place
as well as treats and food if your dog doesn't have any food or treat reactivity. So our kids love giving dogs toys and treats on their place, so much so that sometimes there's more space occupied by toys than there is dog. But they, like Eric said, they are free to do whatever they want on the place command, except get off.
Yep.
So they can stand up, they can sit down, they can roll over, they can spin, they can sleep for hours. They just can't step off. So good point. Anything else?
How do we teach the place
All
command?
right, getting into the nitty gritty. So we prefer to teach it on a cot just because it is very distinguishable what the boundaries are. If you're using a doormat that's, millimeters off the ground, it's very easy for dogs to be confused about what it means to have all four paws on that place item. And so we teach it on a raised cot. If you have a really, really thick, puffy dog bed, that's also a great choice because, again, those boundaries are very clear and defined. You can teach it on a flat surface like a towel or a doormat, but it's a lot harder to teach it. Your dog can place on it after it learns the boundaries, but it is more difficult to teach it on those flatter surfaces. So preferably a raised cot or a thick, puffy dog bed. And so we always, if it's a new object you're bringing into your house, let your dogs play on it first, throw their toys on there, throw some treats on it, and let them have free time with it so they can get comfortable and used to it before you start pointing at it and saying place. And then they're gonna be like, I hate this object because I don't know what it means and you only yell at me when we're by it. Not what we're going for. So let them get used to it first, and then put a leash on them when you start your training for the place command so they cannot be confused and go the other direction or run away from you or play the catch me game when you're trying to focus on teaching the place command. So having that leash on them is an umbilical cord to keep them attached to you, but also to hold them accountable if they are to make a naughty choice and say, I don't really care to do this right now, so I'm gonna leave. The command we use is place. So we're going to have the leash on our dog. We're going to walk up to that item. We're going to point to it and say place. So point and place. With the leash, we're going to walk the dog onto it, and we're going to use the leash to kind of guide the dog so all 4 feet are on that place item. If 1 foot is off of it, we're still going to be kind of pulling them gently with the leash to get that last foot onto the bed. If they walk onto it and walk right off the other side, again, we're going to be pulling them back to get them right back on that bed. And once all 4 feet are on the bed, we're going to mark it by saying, good place. That's when you can reward your dog with verbal praise, physical touch, gifts. So if that's toys or treats, quality time, whatever your love language is for your dog, that's when you're going to give it, when all 4 feet are on that cot. And then we don't ask them to stay on it very long. Round 1, we immediately say break when they have that success of all 4 feet on that cot, and then give them what we call a play bow, which is where you bend over and I kind of open my arms. It's hard to, can you see me in the video? I'm going to jump in front of Christina and Eric here and say, place, and we kind of open our arms in this play bow to invite the dogs off of the cot. And that's how they learn that we have to, or they don't have to, but they can choose to get off of the place when we say break. So we're teaching the break word as well as the place word. Let's see. So we do this several times, so lots of repetitions. Each time I might have the dog place on the place cot or place bed or wherever you're having them place on that object for a little bit longer each time. So I might start with place, and then once all 4 feet are on, immediately breaking them, releasing them from that. Or as we get longer, I might say place and have them stay on there for 30 seconds and then do my play bow and say break. I might have them place, make sure all 4 feet are on there, and start dropping toys or treats farther away from the place cot. But again, I have that leash in my hand, so if my dog makes that naughty choice to go play instead of following its command, which is place, I can take that leash and either prevent it from jumping off to get those toys or treats, or guide the dog back onto the place cot to stay in their place until you release them. Let's see, I want to make sure I'm not missing any of these steps because I wrote them out because I know I can be a bit scatterbrained, hence Thanksgiving Day tips. And when you have the leash on your dog, make sure you're not holding that leash tight. That leash should never be putting pressure on your dog's neck, because you're going to be communicating to your dog that they're doing something wrong. So that leash always needs to be loose unless your dog is actively making the wrong decision to get off of the place. That's the only time that leash should be tight, as you're guiding that dog back onto the place and then immediately going loose leash, or giving that dog some slack in the leash so that they can stay on the place comfortably and calmly. The other tip I had here was, when you start practicing duration, meaning a long place command, place can be something your dog can do for 10 minutes or 2 hours, because they can fall asleep, wake up, play, and stay on it. So they can live life temporarily on their place command and still have a lot of fun. Whereas like a down command is very uncomfortable for a dog to hold for a long period of time, because they kind of need to stretch and get up and move. So while they're on the place, when you start to practice those durations, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, we recommend putting the place cot or the place bed right under the television set. So if you are watching TV, if your dog tries to get up and sneak away, he's right where your eyes are already directed, so you can see them sneaking off. Not a good idea to practice duration on the place command if the TV's over here, here we go, and the place bed's over there. Because you won't see your dog get up and walk away. You're going to be looking this way. Also not a good idea to practice the place command if you're a very avid and deep reader like I am. When I get my nose in a book, nothing in the world exists but that book. So I won't be able to hold my dog accountable for a place command either. Do you guys have any other tips of where you recommend practicing?
Do you have any? I would say not necessarily any other locations, but one thing that you can do to use as an aid when you're starting to do longer periods of duration, or when you start to increase the distance, because as you're doing this for 10 minutes or an hour or longer, you won't necessarily be standing right next to your dog holding the leash as you will when you start this. Right. So when you're a little bit further away, something you can do is what we say called back tie, or anchor your dog to something. So if you've got a smaller dog, that can be as simple as just looping the leash handle over a doorknob, so that if they do step off the place, then they won't be able to get very far before you can redirect them and guide them back onto the place. So that's something that you can use as an aid in those beginning steps before your dog has more confidence, and you know that if they step off and you say no place, then they'll go on just when you ask them to, and maybe step toward them and use a little bit of what we call spatial pressure, kind of that body language. As your dog gets more comfortable, they'll respond to those sorts of things. But in the beginning, you might need to actually walk back and guide them onto play. So that'll keep them more stationary if you have their leash anchored to something.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. You mentioned as at the beginning, you need to hold them more accountable, and as they get better with it, there'll be less accountability needed from you because they know. So as they're learning the place command, as they're learning the break command, they're also learning how serious you are about making them follow through with this command. So at these beginning phases, these beginning lessons of the place, you definitely want to hold your dog accountable immediately for any missteppings, literally as they step off the place, to make sure they understand, when I say place, I need you on here flawlessly, right? So that when Thanksgiving next year or Christmas comes,
when Thanksmas happens,
your dog will know that even though you may seem distracted and not paying attention, they still need to stay on the place. Back tying is a great idea, even for Christmas Day. Even if your dog was doing it flawlessly before that, you are going to be more distracted. You are not going to be able to hold your dog accountable like you are during your practice lesson. So having that back tie is going to be a great added benefit for you and de-stressor, because you know you have that accountability that even if your dog does try to get off, they're not going to be running freely through the house being totally rewarded for breaking the command.
It's kind of like a safety net for that behavior.
For dogs that back tying is not an option for, we recommend having that leash during your practice lessons kind of pointed directly at you. So if the dog is placing over here, where am I at? Okay, I can't do this. If the dog's placing here, have the leash pointed towards you. So if Eric's holding the dog accountable, I want the leash pointed towards him. If Christina is, I'm going to have the leash pointed towards There we go. And then
That's
the same
hard.
for me. It is very hard because it's backwards. Anyways, have that leash pointed towards you. If you have a long line, that is a term that describes a longer training leash that can be 15 feet, 30 feet, 20 feet. It's longer than the general 6-foot leash. You can also use that so it can actually be touching you and in your hand, even though your dog's placing 10 or 15 feet away in front of the television. You want to practice your dog placing away from you, not at your feet. So don't put the place cot right at the bottom of the couch, because that's going to be very difficult for Christmas when you can't have your dog right at the bottom of the couch, or you can't be sitting right next to your dog. So making sure that they're placing away from you on the opposite side of the room, preferably. And if you don't have those long lines, just attach 2 leashes together. You do not want to use a retractable leash for this. That can just get very complicated as far as handling the dog. And then if you accidentally flip that switch and try to suck your dog back in, you're going to make them break the place command just because they didn't have a choice. So I would recommend just having a standard 6-foot leash for this command. Let's see, what other tips do we have? Oh, if they ever break the command. So you're going to use the term no, place. We're not saying no, don't place. We're saying no, period. You made the wrong choice. Place, that's the command I want you to do. So no, place, and then grabbing that leash as quickly as possible to redirect them or guide them right back to that place command, and making sure we get them back on there, all 4 feet on it, until we release them. So for your practice lessons, as you start to practice 5, 10, 20, 30, 60 minutes, if you're going for a 20-minute lesson and your dog breaks on minute 19, before you release them, your dog sneaks off the cot, you don't have to start 20 minutes all over again. Just put a pause on that clock, get your dog back on there, all 4 feet on, and then resume for that next minute. If your dog is breaking a lot, that tells me that you are maybe not being as effective in catching them quickly. And so they're getting rewarded just by sneaking off of the cot and be like, I'm winning, I'm winning, I'm winning. And so they're going to continuously test you. Or maybe you are being too permissive with your tone. So as they break, instead of having a firmer no, place, not yelling at the dog, I'm not screaming at the dog, but I'm not saying no, place. And that my tone right there is a reward. It's a treat. It's sweet. And so I want to have a firm tone, no, place. And so the dog knows I'm upset about this. You disobeyed me. Any other tips, guys? Oh, the quicker you catch them as they try to break that command before you release them, the easier it is to get them to stay on that place. Yeah. So if you see them lift a paw to step off, and before that paw even touches the ground, you say, no place, they're going to put that paw right back on that place command. If you see them moving that paw and that paw touches the ground, and then it's the next paw, and then the whole body's off and it's across the living room, it's going to take a lot longer, maybe up to a minute or 2, to get them back on that place command, because they just got rewarded and won. And so try to catch them as quickly as possible, which is why having that place cot or place bed right under the television is usually the easiest option for people, because you can see it right away. Unless you're watching a serious show like Game of Thrones, and it may be too distracting and you can't focus properly. So don't watch those kind of shows.
With increasing the difficulty of your place command, being as you get further and further away, and if you start to add in some distractions, like Crystal said, like dropping toys or food or things like that, you only want to move to the next distraction when your dog's almost bored with what you're doing. Yeah. Like when they're doing that very successfully, say I start dropping a toy a few feet away, initially they're probably going to jump right off, go for that. We're going to have to correct them. Nope, place, good job. When they're bored with that and they're not testing that anymore, now it's time to move to something a little bit more challenging. If your dog's breaking repeatedly and you're having to continuously remind them, then maybe you're moving a little bit too fast. Scale it back a little bit, try something a little bit easier until they can be successful, and then move on. Which is why we say start this now, not on Christmas Day, because that's a huge distraction. I'm using my left hand so you can see it. Huge distraction environment and situation that if you don't build up to that your chance for success is going to be very, very small.
Mm-hmm. And to be honest, you may not get there right before Christmas, and that's okay. Some dogs just need more time to understand and learn and process, and just don't overwhelm yourself by thinking, oh, I don't know if he's ready, but this is what we've been practicing for, so we're just going to do it. Mm-hmm. Or maybe if you try it and then you see, you know what, this is just too stressful right now, put him in a different room or crate him. Right? Like, it's okay to not be ready by Christmas as well. Mm-hmm. But if you want to, you can definitely bust your butt and try all of these things and build up your distractions so that you will have the greatest success for Christmas time.
And I'll say, if at Christmas time you think your dog's ready and then you find out on Christmas that they're not ready, and if you're not ready to give up quite yet, one thing you can do to potentially have some better success is just move your dog further away from all the action. So, like, if everybody's in the living room and you've got your dog in the living room and it's way too stimulating for them, maybe move them into the next room where there's the foyer
where you can see them,
where you can still see them, or maybe there's only 1 or 2 guests in the dining room, so you can go sit in the dining room, have your dog place in there, versus the living room where there's 15 people and there's
kids playing
and there's food and all that stuff. Yeah. So creating a little bit more space. Sometimes even as little as 5 or 10 more feet can have a huge impact, where your dog may be able to be successful there, but 10 feet closer to all the action, not a chance. So keep that in mind. But like Crystal said, if your dog's not ready, your dog's not ready. So you're going to have a much more enjoyable Thanksgiving or Christmas if you don't try to push your dog too hard, too fast.
Yes. So our tips to start this, what we call the distraction ladder, is to start with the easiest things to your dog and work your way up to the most difficult things, like having your dog place at Christmas when there's all these people and food present. So building up to that, we recommend starting with food, like dog food, dog kibble, dog treats, toys, and having this with the leash in your hand the whole time, because you don't want to do this 10 feet away from your dog and throw a piece of food between you and your dog and it bolts off the place and grabs that food. You just lost. So make sure you're successful and your dog is successful. Both of your success is very important to us to making this a fun command and a command that is has longevity, a command that can be going for a long time and not be a bad feeling for you or your dog. So starting with those, working your way up to dog toys, and then maybe start introducing some human foods that are safe for dogs to eat, but you maybe still don't want your dog to eat. So like popcorn or potato chips that might have a higher excitability level for your dog, but still teaching them impulse control. You're on the place. Just because this fell on the ground doesn't mean it's yours to eat. And then I would recommend you placing your dog during your own family breakfast, lunch, and or dinners up to Christmas. So if you're not home for lunch, don't worry about it. If breakfast is too crazy for you, then practice at dinner until you got dinner down, and then introduce it during breakfast time when it's crazy. Because I know here breakfast is like, blah, because we're trying to get everyone ready for school. But it's still a distraction level. So conquer dinner first, where you can be calmer and more attentive to your dog, and work your way up to that breakfast chaos. And then there's Saturdays and Sundays where you get to practice all 3 meals if you're home. Excuse me. So practicing those up to those, and then maybe inviting some of your kids' friends over, or some of your own personal friends over, with the understanding that this invitation to our house is to help us work our dog. So you don't feel bad about having your friends come over to socialize with you, but all of your attention's been on your dog because you're trying to teach them this command. When you tell your friends this in advance, our friends have always, they love dogs, they're dog lovers. So they've always been willing to come and help us and hang out to us. While I may not be looking at you while we talk the whole time, because I'm going to be peeking at my dog a lot to make sure I'm in their place, but we can still have conversations, and they can still help us work with the dog, and they can still drop things and be a part of it. But starting with those small get-togethers, so when you have 15, 20, 30 people over to your house, depending on how crazy your Christmas gets, your dog will have those little wins under their belt. The more wins you and your dog have before Christmas, the more successful you're going to be Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And this concludes my presentation.
So one thing, like I think you mentioned earlier, and that I thought of as you were talking about that, is foods that are safe or not safe for our dogs.
So Christmas dinner.
Christina, do you know of some foods that are safe for dogs to have during Thanksgiving or Christmas meals?
Some foods that are safe are cranberry sauce. I would say even from a can, it should be safe. A lot of vegetables are really safe. Zucchini, green beans, broccoli, peas, carrots. You can even give them some meat like turkey or chicken.
Steak if you have it.
Yeah.
I would try to stay away from some of the starchier vegetables like white potatoes and what are some other starchy vegetables? That's all I got.
White potatoes is what comes to
Okay,
mind.
but with like sweet potato casserole, or whether you use sweet potatoes or yams, those are both very, very densely nutritious foods for dogs, but not in a sweet potato casserole.
Yeah, not with marshmallows and brown sugar and all that stuff.
Right, and so the same thing with turkey. When you start adding in gravy and a lot of the other fattier options that make our taste buds dance, they're not the healthiest for the dogs. And quite honestly, your dog will enjoy it just as much, if not more, without those things. So giving them unseasoned vegetables is going to be the most beneficial. So not like a heavily salted or something with black pepper on it, because too much black pepper can irritate a dog's GI tract. And we definitely don't want you to have any loose stools for your Christmas day. We've had one of those. A dog of ours had a sensitive stomach and was given a saltine cracker. Who would have thought? Christmas morning for us, this was Christmas Eve. Christmas morning was very sad. I cried.
Yeah, this is all assuming your dog does not have a sensitive stomach.
And if your
some dogs don't do well with anything outside of their normal diet, so
don't give them anything.
So yes, if you have never given your dog table scraps successfully,
now is not the time.
Christmas is not going to be any different.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. But if your dog does have a sensitive stomach, this is why we love the place command for Christmas, for that pit bull caster that did have loose stool because he was snuck some food. We could put him on a place away from where people were eating, so we didn't have to worry about people giving him food because it looked sad or cute, or him picking up food that was dropped on the ground. He could just hold that place for an hour or an hour and a half until everybody was done eating. I would kind of do a walkthrough to make sure there was no food scraps on the ground, and then I would release him. And so that just cleared up all of those GI problems that we have to deal with after the party. Foods your dog should not have.
Can you think of some dogs that your food shouldn't have?
Yeah.
Some food that your
Don't let your turkey eat your dog.
Some foods that our dogs should not have during the Christmas feast.
I think it was mentioned earlier, but with turkey, it's good not to have all that extra gravy on it because it's fattening. I would generally stay away from foods that you don't know everything that's in there. And especially like onions, those are not good for dogs. Avocados, if you have avocado in some form at Christmas, not really traditional Christmas food.
Right.
But
just in case though.
Pecans, chocolate. I think everyone has chocolate, but those things are not good for your dog. Other kinds of nuts, and especially bones. I know a lot of people give their dogs like table scraps, like the bones that are left over, but cooked bones really aren't healthy for your dog.
They're very dangerous.
Those
are all good points. So. And I would just add sugar. So like Christina mentioned, most casseroles, there's a lot of things in there that we can guess are in it. But since it's not a pure form of food, I would just not give that to your dog. And then anything sugary, again, just don't give it to your dog.
Yeah. So very, very good point. Just because, if carrots are great for your dog, but that doesn't mean carrot cake is good.
Right.
That doesn't mean that everything that has carrots in it is good.
Yes.
I probably wouldn't give your dog any prepared foods because that's going to have a whole bunch of ingredients, and one of those ingredients could upset your dog.
Right. Like a buttered bowl of green beans or something like that. Yes, it's just green beans and butter, but butter is not really healthy for dogs, especially because most dogs have a weight problem.
Right.
And so we don't want to be contributing to that.
Just
pure form.
Yeah, pure form food.
One thing we like to give our dogs, if you're like us and have fed raw meats and raw food, like uncooked fruits and vegetables to your dog, is when we prep the turkey, that neck and gizzards and all of those innards
that we would have otherwise thrown in the trash.
Yeah. And if you don't use those to make gravy, because I know some people do, I don't know how that happens, but it tastes good. we would just chop that up for our dogs and put it in her bowl, and that's her Thanksgiving feast.
Yeah.
She gets to eat turkey like the rest of us, just not the parts of turkey we want.
Uncooked bones, very good for your
Very
dog.
good. That turkey neck, uncooked.
That's very good.
Marvelous.
Cooked bones, very bad.
Very bad. Why are cooked bones bad?
They will splinter.
And raw bones don't?
Raw bones don't.
Raw bones do not splinter. They may crack as your dog bites into them, obviously. But because they are not splintering, they are not going to lacerate your dog's esophagus or GI tract or any of those organs inside, or cause any uncomfortable stools as your dog might be passing those objects. So raw bones are good. Cooked bones are very, very, very dangerous. Your vet does not want you to call them on Thanksgiving or Christmas Day. So keep those cooked bones away. And also skins. That's the other thing that some people don't like to eat, and they would think, I'll just give this to my dog. Skin is fatty. Remember, we talked about a lot of dogs having that obesity or an overweight problem. Don't be giving them any foods that might be increasing the risk of overweightness or diabetes or obesity. So,
yeah, and I'll say a lot of times meats that are prepared for humans oftentimes have other things on the skin, like oils or butters or all that kind of stuff, seasoning. So another reason just to avoid that if it's part of your meal. Yeah,
Cool. So that's all we got, guys. If you have any questions or something we forgot to mention or something that was confusing, like the title says Thanksgiving, but it was actually for Christmas, please post those in the comments. If you like this video or you are going to be visiting your family that has dogs for Christmas, share this video with them. Or if you were going to be having family members that are maybe coming to your house with their dogs, also a great moment to share that with them. And we will see you next week at our next Facebook Live. If you have any topic ideas or choices or questions about canine behavior or training, please post those in the comments as well, as we always love to answer your questions directly. And until then, bye everyone.
Thanks for watching, and keep a lookout for more of our awesome new trainer, Christina, who we're super excited to have on the team. Have a happy Christmas.
Oh, man.
All right. Better get us off here before we say anything else silly.
You know what we didn't do?